Hi everyone. My name is Chaim Black. I work as a cybersecurity analyst at Intrust IT. Uh, it's a IT company in Cincinnati, Ohio, in the United States. Um, Intrust IT is a managed service provider. Our primary bread and butter is providing IT and cybersecurity services for a wide range of municipalities, government, government different government buildings, manufacturing plants, and general stuff around Cincinnati. Uh, Try to stay pretty local. That's pretty much where we focus on. Um, my day-to-day operations typically at Intrust IT is both proactively looking to reduce our clients' risk of cyber fraud, keeping up with different trends in cybersecurity, as well as doing basic incident response to anything that comes up with our clients. Pretty small shop, about 30 people or so. Really just in terms of our company ourselves, um, we have about 30 people at our company. And as I said, with our managed, with our, we make our money in selling IT services. We obviously have to secure all of our clients and can't afford them to get compromised. In the past couple of years, a couple of our clients did have a couple big cybersecurity incidents. Some of them could have been, prevented based off on stuff we could have done, as well as different mistakes. So it's something which we're trying to always, learn from um, learn from what's going on in the industry, as well as getting best practices, to making sure we keep up with industry standards. um, just in terms of what I do in cybersecurity and how we get how I got into it. I initially started in IT. You don't necessarily have to start in IT, but the better background you have in general about computers and understanding how it works really will help you out in cybersecurity. So I started out initially at a video production studio in Maryland, and that's how I got my first foot in the door into IT. And then I moved to Cincinnati and got a job here. The way I got into cybersecurity at my current company, my job is relatively new within my company. It's a job which I created essentially. We had some people focus on cybersecurity, but I was the first one to hold a cybersecurity focus role. Although there are other people who know a lot more than me in cybersecurity, they're system engineers and stuff like that. But we're trying to get a division where solely focused on cybersecurity. So got my sort of foot in the door in cybersecurity. The way I did that was I was just very interested in cybersecurity, and I just took the initiative. It's one thing you always have to do is not be willing to wait for someone else to tell you, hey, do this, do that, but always take the initiative of, hey, what's wrong? What can we do? What can we be doing better? The first thing which I really got into and started doing, and something which I heavily focused on, is Office 365 security, and it's one of my specialties at my company. We're looking at security incidents, Office 365 platform. One of the things that I've seen was that it's most of the ways of attackers getting their foothold is through email system, whether it be potential ransomware, which I've seen more commonly. The more common um, methods we've seen attackers steal money from our clients is the business email compromises. So initially, a couple years ago, in my company, I've seen that, when something gets compromised, reset the password and move on and not really dig into it. And I taught myself PowerShell, a couple of different other scripting languages, and, built different, scripting tools to connect Office 365 and do a lot of threat hunting and do forensics on Office 365 platform. And that's sort of the way I, sort of got into, like, quote unquote cybersecurity in my company. Whereas, hey, we have to be focusing on, really digging into incidents of not just, lock everything up and move forward, but also what happened, what can we do to prevent, better prevent it. Um, One of the things that's, very important is always having that natural curiosity of, um, you know, wanting to move forward and learn and, continue to learn. There are people in my company who have been there for 10, 15 years longer than me. And I can honestly say that I'm a couple years, much, more than that, years ahead of them, just because they're stagnant. They don't care to grow. They're not getting certifications. They're not moving, they don't they're not always looking to learn the next thing. So one of the big things I always recommend is never be happy with where you are. However much you know now, how much you think you really just know like 0.1%, and you can never be satisfied with your current your skill set and your current knowledge in cybersecurity. The people that I do know that are very good at cybersecurity, I don't know anyone that says they're an expert in cybersecurity. There's no real experts because there's so many different directions you can go in, and you can't know everything. And I see you guys taking a course. Got a little dip of it, and towards the end, you really want to become familiar as much as you can in all aspects of cybersecurity, and not just one area, because the better you understand across whether it's email or dealing with ransomware, penetration testing, the blue team, red team, whichever you're going into, you want to try to understand as much as you could. But getting back to what I said initially with IT, you also want to have a good understanding of how servers work, how networks work from an administration standpoint, because it'll help you understand of how to defend against what the platforms you're trying to protect. We have some of our bigger clients who have internal cybersecurity teams and cybersecurity analysts, and I've seen people come out with really big degrees in cybersecurity, but they don't know how to configure basic group policies to deploy whatever security tool they want to do. And I can see that even in their day-to-day job, their lack of understanding in technology is really it affects their work that they do. So in addition to whatever you learned in cybersecurity, pen testing, or defending, you really just want to try to get as much as you can of understanding of how companies, the technology behind the companies, how they operate day to day, to be able to either protect, or if you're penetration testing, how to get into it. A good core, you really want to have a good core in terms of getting understanding of how the infrastructure actually works. Have any questions?
I wanted to ask you, I noticed on LinkedIn that you've been like flying through certifications this year, right? There's like a lot of certifications. Do you find that they're like helping you? Is it things that you knew before and it was just a case of like concretizing them into a certification, or did you learn it all this year?
So for me, a lot of my certifications I got this past year was stuff I already knew. Um, like I said, the role that I currently have as a cybersecurity analyst, I created in my company. There were people who knew a lot about cybersecurity, but I wanted to have a dedicated role. So I went over to my manager and said, "Hey, I want to have this role. What do I have to do in order to get that role?" And he gave me a list of certifications of, "Hey, you need X, Y, and Z." So for me, for certifications, once I get on track of, "Hey, I got to do this," I'll spend a lot of hours, getting to that point. So this past year, I got a lot of certifications because I wanted to get that title of cybersecurity analyst. But a lot of them was stuff I already knew. A lot of the Microsoft ones, I'm very familiar with Microsoft. A lot of the ones that I got are Microsoft focused. So a lot of this stuff was like, as an example, I had the MCSE a couple years ago, and the newer versions have like Microsoft 365 certified. So because I knew a lot of the content, I just flew through it. The only non-Microsoft certification I got this past year was a Security Plus, which is something I put a lot of time into. And now I'm currently studying for the cybersecurity, the CISA Plus. It's something I'm actively studying for. But even with studying for certifications, I'm sort of taking my time with this one, because I'm really not just focused on taking the test. I really want to get the knowledge behind it. A big challenge with studying new things is really take every opportunity you can when you're in this course to really dig into stuff. It's a lot harder when you have a full-time job to be able to learn stuff out of stuff which you don't deal with on a day-to-day basis. So a lot of the stuff which I'm studying for in this certification, it's not something I typically deal with. With most of our clients being smaller range, none of our clients have a SIM that we manage. We have a couple clients that we outsource, like a SOC as a service, something called Perch, where we don't manage the SIM itself. So like those kind of things where me myself, I'm struggling with to get a good handle on is to get a good understanding of, how these things work, how to manage it, but take every opportunity you can while you're in your courses, the course you're taking now, to broaden your knowledge and labs and stuff like that, because it's a whole lot harder to learn and get real good knowledge um, when you're not dealing with something on a day-to-day basis.
Thanks.
Hi, Ellie Lieberman, how are you?
Good.
Thank you for volunteering tonight to speak. Quick question. You mentioned that your I guess specialty, so to speak, is Office 365.
Yeah.
Okay. So and I guess you're by the sounds of it, for sure you have your eyes on something else. So Office 365 sounded like you had already some experience there or something like that. But like if you're like when you're picking your next idea, like what did you focus on? Why did you focus on it, etc. That
Moving forward,
right?
so right
Because
now,
everything, cybersecurity is so broad, very very broad, right? So it's kind of like what's like a natural step from where you are, just for example.
So right now, I'm really also trying to look for different researching different security solutions for our clients. So with our clients, we have sort of two different classes. One of them is like a complete care client, it's called, where they pay us a flat monthly fee, where we accept all the risk. So because we accept all the risk, we put together different security packages of, we use, this, EDR, this, whatever security tools you put together. So I'm trying to broaden my knowledge in terms of the different cybersecurity tools, broadening my knowledge in what services we could potentially purchase, as well as also advancing my knowledge in stuff which I'm not as familiar with, such as like forensics. Typically in the past with forensics, I dealt with a couple ransomware incidents where company has ransomware. Most of the time, companies have cybersecurity insurance. We'll most of the time have to push it off to them, and they do. We provide them the images and the memory captures, the memory dumps, and they dig into a lot of the nitty gritty stuff. On my end, I'm really trying to pivot myself to learn a lot more about that kind of stuff. You know, you know, really dig into forensics, as well as myself also get into a bit more penetration testing. It's not something we resell to our clients, but it's something which I want to know. You really have to know what the attackers are actually doing, and you can't. There's ideas that people have in their head of what they think attackers are doing, but until you actually dig into it and mess with it, um, it could be something completely different. And I've seen different companies spend a lot of money on security tools protecting themselves against X when, hey, this isn't your problem. You really have to be focusing on why, because this is what attackers are actually doing. So I'm like now trying to pivot into with the cybersecurity, the CISA plus, as well as dig in probably to the pen test plus as well. So that's sort of my next moves of where I'm going.
That's awesome. Sounds exciting.
Yeah.
Can I ask, what does your day look like? From morning to however long your work day is. What are you doing day-to-day basis?
Sure. So I start at 7:30 in the morning. Um, I monitor our EDR. We use one of the things we use a couple of security EDRs. Main one we use is SentinelOne. So we don't currently have like a 24/7 SOC where we're monitoring alerts. So it isn't a lot. It isn't pretty heavy in the middle of the night, obviously, but uh, most of the time monitoring our different security monitoring tools that we have in place, um, responding to alerts from our different alerting platforms that we have, as well as I'm actually involved in projects we have like a baseline that we want to have across all of our clients, whether it be in Office 365 or our servers. So there's also those side projects of getting everyone up to the baseline, doing different audits across our different clients, and hopefully not having to deal with security incidents. That's not something I like dealing with. It's something we always try to prevent. But that would also fall into my responsibility if any form of security incident were to pop up. It would land on my plate likely near a couple other guys. So most of my day is a mix of monitoring, monitoring and responding, proactivity, as well as dealing with any incidents that occur.
Thank you.
Are you guys affected by the Solarwinds attack?
No. I have a funny story about that. We actually have, we don't use Solarwinds in the slightest bit. We have a couple big clients, like I said, who have their own whole internal security teams, IT departments, and they come to us for, they know stuff that we specialize in, or they want to get a third party's opinion. We had a big school district that we monitor and provide those services to. And that day when the SolarWinds was announced, they came to me freaking out. Hey, are we affected by this? We use Orion, we use everything that they said was affected, we use. So they immediately disconnected their server. So information was coming in at that point pretty quickly, where I was like, hey, what, obviously the VM disk, it was a VM, so leave it disconnected, but verify what versions you have. So they gave me a call back an hour later. They're like, yeah, we have good news and bad news. The good news is we're not affected. The bad news is we haven't patched a server like in 2 years. So it's way behind on patching. So I wasn't affected by this, but, we're behind the patching in 2 years. So that, raised a glaring issue in their environment. They aren't properly patching. So they weren't affected by the whole Orion, but none of our clients was actually affected by it. But like that patching, that itself is an example of how IT can impact cybersecurity. An instance that we dealt with about 2 years ago was one of our clients nearly had a ransomware. It was a big manufacturing plant, and it occurred because their IT department weren't properly patching servers, and there was a VM that was susceptible to Eternal Blue, and one VM in their environment, and that VM was compromised. It was contained really quickly, but it just shows you patching. It's like one of those obvious things that you think people have control over, but you really it's that one thing that a lot of companies struggle with, is properly patching everything. That's how a lot of pen testers are so successful.
Nice.
Hi, Chaim. This is Yehuda. Hi. You mentioned towards the beginning that some of your clients were compromised. How did you negotiate that on a business level? But when I mean business, I mean like they're your clients and they're relying on you. So
right.
how did you do your load balancing over there? How did you negotiate that? And also, subsequent to that, did it affect your business with them financially?
Yeah, so I'll highlight one of the cases where one of our clients had a ransomware, and one of the things which we do really good is focusing on business continuity and good backup. So we have really good backups. We use Datto primarily, so it's backed up locally to an on-site server. It also goes to the cloud. We've never paid ransom for our clients in the past, 10 years or so. We always have good backups. So one of our clients had a ransomware incident a couple years ago, and it comes in at 7:30 in the morning, get an alarm, no one can access any of their file shares. I take a look at it and see that their terminal server was compromised. I was, doing a lot of quick digging, and found that there was a user account test user, which that user account on the terminal server, which is what encrypted all the files. I took a quick look at our ticketing system, did a lot of digging, and found that there was one of our technicians that we had 2-3 years prior to that incident. Someone who no longer even worked there. He was like a pretty short term, someone who worked there and left. He had created a user account, test user, and set it to password 123. A couple years later, 2 years after that guy leaves, it was a terminal server which had 3389 open. We were in the process of getting it closed and move off to remote gateway or VPN. I can't remember which one. And an attacker brute forced and got into that account. that definitely, impacted, they were down for 2 or 3 days, even though they had all the backups in place because they had sensitive information on the server. They had to provide identity protection services. They lost about $20,000 due to that incident, and not because of anything data that was lost due to the ransomware. We had backups from a couple hours prior to the infection, so they didn't lose any data, but there was a real cost of about $20,000 to them, due to legal fees and disclosures and stuff like that. And we have in our company, we have structure, we have account managers who deal with them. And it was one of those moments where, hey, it's like, this is something which we messed up on. There was, a lot of action plans of auditing, obviously dealing with that incident, as well as, hey, this is the mitigation steps that we're taking, and this is what we're doing to improve. Thankfully, we had a really good relationship with that client, and it didn't result into a termination of services, but there was definitely, for about a year or so, like, we knew we were on notice that, keep everything straight. So those are the kind of things which sort of highlight also, like in IT, where you really have to be doing it's the little things. People think it's the complicated things which get people compromised a lot of times, but a lot of times, and I found this even from bigger companies, it's these small little things. You have these having control over user accounts, don't having anything anything which doesn't, any account which doesn't have to be enabled, patch, don't have 339 open to the internet. These are the small things which we found, which I've seen and heard of. These are the things which can take companies down. But there definitely was, that, like, for about a year or so with that client, it was, our relationship with them was, hey, it's like on notice, where we have to keep on top of things. So thankfully, we made a lot of progress since then. A lot of, addressed issues which led to that incident. But, thankfully moved on from that.
Do you have any advice for people like us who are entry level, I guess, and trying to get into the field, trying to get their first job and whatever?
It's getting a job. I'll be honest. I don't know what the job market looked like, or most of the people on the call, where they're looking. But the United States, it doesn't make any sense. Everyone's posting that there's so many jobs, but a lot of people that I know which are getting into cybersecurity, some people get jobs right away. Other than them have a really difficult time with getting their foot in the door into cybersecurity. It's really difficult. It could be difficult, but it's also, I would say it's luck. Like, just to give you an example, I have a friend who recently got his first job working for one of a big credit unions here, straight out of a program. The biggest thing that I found, the way people got jobs, is through networking through other people. So putting your name out there, on LinkedIn, being very active on, just being active on LinkedIn. It's something which I'm on a lot, but also something which I found, which I use to get a job in IT, is making sure that your resume is optimized for the ATSs. ATS application tracking systems, which wherever you apply, your resume goes first to the ATS, then it hits human eyes. And that's most of the time based off of keywords, looking to filter out. It's looking to they know that hundreds of people are going to apply. So they use these softwares which try to match up the job descriptions match it up to your resume and gives it a score. So making sure that you have, the right keywords on your resumes, even tailoring it towards, specific jobs. But the big thing that I found is just networking with other people in the industry. That's really the big way that I've found.
Who you know.
Yeah.
Don't be shy, you can ask.
What was that?
Just think.
Xavier has a question.
Oh, please don't. Our group like to ask about salaries, and it gets really embarrassing. But there's no need to talk about it.
So, curious about the average salaries in cybersecurity. Is that the question?
Pretty much.
It really depends on. where you work, that's really the big thing. Different, obviously, the different cities where you get the job and have very different salary ranges. And it's really also just, what kind of company you're working for. A lot of the smaller companies typically have smaller salaries. Um, just to throw some numbers out, in just as an example, like in Cincinnati, you can look on Monster, or there are different sites which have average salaries, and it can range, 60, 70,000. Well, in entry level, I'm not sure in terms of what the salaries are, but most of the time with first jobs in cybersecurity, what I've seen is the smaller companies anywhere 50 to 70. Some of the bigger companies, it really just depends on how the company is structured. But I know someone who got his first job in cybersecurity. He was making 102,000 on his first job in cybersecurity, but he got a job at a bigger company, and they had the budget for it, and they were able to make that move. With salaries, what's one of the biggest, the big things as well is, for me, it's less about the salary, but it's more about getting a good place where you can grow in. Like I said, we have some of our clients who have internal IT teams. I know I'm really good friends with one of the IT support in one of my clients, and I know for a fact he's probably making nearly double my salary. And I know for myself, I know probably 5 times the amount of knowledge that he knows in IT and cybersecurity. He's been in the industry for like 20 years or so. And he, that same big company, they keep on bumping up the salary, and he hates it. He absolutely hates his job. He's been trying to leave for the past 5 years. He hates his manager. But for him, he just can't leave, because anywhere he tries to go, he can't get within $20,000-$30,000 of his range, but he literally hates his job and hates going to work every day. So a big thing is, it's a really tough balance of getting a good company to work for, somewhere where you enjoy to work, and someone that pays well.
Well, do you work remotely, or you go into the office every day?
So my company is based in Cincinnati. We were all in office up until COVID hit. Now we're a mix of in office and out of the office, but it's one of the things which I'm curious about as well. If some of the companies, the cybersecurity focused companies, who used to hire just local, are now opening the doors also to remote. So I'm a mix in and out of the office, but I'm sure there are companies who are companies who were before just looking for local, who are opening up the doors to remote employees. So yeah, there's no really easy answer of how to get into cybersecurity. It's one of those big questions which you'll see of, people post there are millions of jobs in cybersecurity, and hiring managers want you to have a CISSP and all these crazy certifications, and which don't make any sense. So it can be hard, but in my opinion, it's all about the networking and getting someone, finding people in different companies, and meeting the right person.
Could I ask, how's your work-life balance and learning new certifications? Like, how does that work for you?
Right. No, for me, I'll be honest, it's a bit hard on my end. Working for an IT company, I always have probably twice the amount of work which I can possibly handle on a given day. That's just the nature of my company, of the way we have things. So it's always just prioritizing, dealing with this, dealing with that. But I always have a lot more work than I can handle. So in general, I don't put it, 40, 45-hour weeks, sometimes a lot more than that, as well as on call, dealing with every, month or so. But, as life goes on, I have 2 kids, it can get, for me, it can be hard at times with learning new, getting new certifications and stuff, which I'm not familiar with, because there's my work, which is, however many hours I have that month, that week or day, whatever it is. And, having the time to, deal with certifications. It's something which, when I get into those certifications mode, I spend a lot of time on it. So it can be rough at times when I get into things. Now I'm kind of taking a break on the certifications and studying a bit more lightly. But I think it's also more a personality thing of people be able to have a good structure of you're working this amount of hours and dedicate this hour or so to to studying. So I think it's a personality and less about the company as well. It's something which I'm struggling a bit with, which I'm trying to get under control myself.
Is it something that like you find yourself having to give excuses to your family or to your company?
Not so much. Not so much. I mean, I have it. I'm not working crazy hours at night, and I have dedicated time when I do work. So it's not causing a lot of stress on my end. I personally love what I do. So I don't find it hard to to work extra or to study extra. But it's for me, it's just about setting. I'm doing it from this time to this time, and I'm not going past it. So that's just what I've been trying to focus on.
Yeah. How does it working as a Orthodox Jew? I'm assuming you're working for a non-Jewish company, a large company. How does that
Yeah.
how does that work with Yom Tov and this and the atmosphere of the company? How do they treat you? How do they look at you? I'm just curious about that.
So I feel like with the new, at least in in America, a lot of the companies, they're all about embracing being very open-minded. And the company I got a job for, I'm very grateful to work for a company. It's very, very understanding. I'm the only Jewish person that works there. So, I'm sort of setting, this is what's expected. I have an on-call rotation every couple weeks, no, about 6 weeks or so. And I have someone cover my Shabbos and I take over their Sunday. But for the most part, they don't have a problem with it. Like the new norm is for companies to try to be as accepting as possible, however crazy lifestyle you have. Um, a lot of the companies really try to bend over backwards to try to be as accommodating as possible. So I really don't have any issues at my company with Shabbos. They know that I don't do any work on Shabbos. I have people cover for me if something were to come up. But it's obviously it depends on getting a good company to work for that's understanding on understanding and open-minded for these kind of things.
So like company meet and greets or anything like that. They give food or we had those type of things. How does it work?
So they're very understanding. They have there's before COVID there was monthly meetings where they sponsored meals. So there's kosher restaurants not too far from me. So they always whenever there's anything with food, they give me the credit card, let me buy, go pick something up. So they're really good about that. And it's funny is they'll anyone who I've taken to the kosher restaurants always loved it. So maybe when we get back to office, we'll even get them to get a kosher meal for the whole company once.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Any recommendations? Someone's transitioning to cybersecurity. I've been in IT for a while, various roles, and I'm looking now to cyber, and obviously I'm in cybersecurity now. Any recommendations how to transition?
So with having a good background in IT, it does give you a little bit of an edge in cybersecurity in terms of having a good foundation of, like I said before, it's a transition that I made. So if you have, I'm not sure if what your current role is, if you're currently employed, you're working in IT, or if you're not working in IT, you can transition into it. If you could transition within the same company, that's awesome. If not, then it's going through getting these certifications, taking these courses like you're in, and like I said before, really networking to get into it.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. This has been great.
Sure.
Usually Jonathan Ratner's usually here.
Yeah.
But
here now.
Leo, you want to take Jonathan's place?
No, he's here.
He is here.
Thank you very much, Chaim. It was inspiring. And I liked hearing your Ohio English. I'm from Cleveland, so I like the Cincinnati twang.
Sure.
I am.
Thank you very much.
Hey,
Thank
sure.
you.
Yeah, feel free if anyone has any questions, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn.
Chaim, where do you daven?
CZE.
You send regards to my brothers-in-law, Yossi Folden and Sam Schaefer.
Sure. What's your name?
Moshe Plout.
Where do you live?
Beitar.
Oh, wow.
Beitar Elite.
Is most of this course pretty much everyone in Israel?
No, half in the States and half in Israel. We have a bunch of New Yorkers.
Oh, wow.
Brooklyn and Muncie, Lakewood.
Oh, wow.
Europe.
Europe, yeah, we have London and Antwerp.
Cool. Well, I wasn't too familiar with your program prior to this, so I'll definitely check it out.
Very good.
You're now an international speaker if you weren't before.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Chaim. All the best to you. Thanks for giving
Sure.
us your time.
Thank
We
you.
look forward to
Thank
Thank
talking
you.
again.
Bye.
Sure. All right. See you. Have a good day.
Thank you very much.